Hello and welcome to this video tutorial from Computergaga.com. In this video we are going to look at how you can create drop down menus for your PowerPoint presentations to create a very impressive new way of navigating your slideshows that are going to wow your audiences and your bosses. Now this is what it's going to look like. I've got my drop down menu options at the top. I have functions, shortcuts and secret tips. And if I click on my functions menu, it drops down this lovely menu so I can navigate some of the different functions that my slideshow talks about. And if I choose one of those options, it will take me to that slide. Or if I click on my functions menu again, it removes it and it drops back up. You see, if I choose some product, it takes me to that some product slide. So that is what this video is going to show you. Let's get stuck into that right now. Okay, now we start this video with the shapes already created. I wanted to save some time in this video, so I decided to create these shapes before it rather than during. But all I've done is just create 3 purple rectangle shapes which I'm going to use as my drop down menu buttons. I've then created a further 2 shapes, one called VLOOKUP, one called SUMPRODUCT, that will be my drop down menu options. Now you can obviously create as many of these shapes, as many drop down menus and menu options as you wish. I've created these 2 because I want this shape to link to my SUMPRODUCT slide, and on my VLOOKUP one to link to my VLOOKUP slide. Now the VLOOKUP slide is actually the one I'm on right now, but when this is done I will copy these drop down menus to the other slides of the presentation, so it still makes sense to use it despite me being on that slide right now. Okay, now the first thing I need to do is create the links on those shapes. So I'm going to click on my VLOOKUP shape and I'm going to click the Insert tab of the ribbon and Hyperlink. When I'm in here, I'm going to choose Place in this document and select my VLOOKUP function slide. I can then click OK. I'll then click on the SUMPRODUCT shape that I've got, click my Hyperlink button, choose the SUMPRODUCT slide and click OK. And you will need to do this for every drop down menu option you have. So in this example I'm linking to slides of the presentation, but your drop down menu options can easily link to pages of a website. They could link to a video to play or an Excel spreadsheet. It could be a custom show, whatever you decide to link to. Okay, now that I've got the link set up, I'm going to position these 2 rectangles side by side using PowerPoint's brilliant smart guides to help me line them up quite neatly, like that. And then I'm going to select the other shape and I'm going to group these as one. So they're currently 2 independent rectangle objects, but I want them to function as one menu. So to group them, because that will make our life that little bit easier. And then drag those group shapes up to where I want them to appear as part of the functions drop down menu. So when they are dropped down, that's what it will look like. We now need to create the animation to actually perform that drop down effect. For the drop down effect, I want to create a fly in entrance effect. So I'm going to click on that grouped drop down menu, the animations tab, and I'm going to choose this fly in entrance effect, which by default will create this effect flying up from the bottom. Now I want this to drop down, so my first thing to do after that is to change the effect options to say from top as opposed to from bottom. And there we go, it's now dropping down. And then the next thing is just to slow the animation a little by using this this duration setting on the far right of the animations tab. And I've just increased it to 1 second. You may feel that you want the drop down menu to be a little bit slower, or possibly even a little bit quicker than what I'm demonstrating right now, but I think a second is good. Now at the moment, that drop down effect is going to happen when somebody clicks their mouse button, or when they press a space bar, or any way that they advance through a presentation. Now for me, that's not good enough. I need people to click the functions button, that drop down menu, to then initiate or trigger that effect. So I'm going to click on that drop down menu, and I'm going for the trigger button on the animations tab, so I can get the trigger of the animation effect to be on the click of one of the shapes on this slide. And I'm going for rectangle 11, which is that functions shape. You see, they don't call it functions within this trigger menu, so it can be difficult to know what one's what. But I did create the shapes in that order, so I know that it's number 11. And if I didn't know that, if I choose rectangle 11 right now, and I could preview that, but I could also click the animation pane button at the top, and now on the right hand side I can see that that is the function shape. It now says trigger set on rectangle 11 functions, so I know it's on the right drop down menu, the right rectangle. Okay, now is the time to test how this works. Let's do our first test, what we've got so far. So I'm going to click the slideshow tab and press from current slide to open up slideshow view, and if I click on my functions menu, it initiates that drop down. Okay, so that's great. I've got that drop down effect. Now what I want is when I click on that functions button again, I want it to drop back up. I've got two options here. I'm either going to choose one of my links, or I'm going to click it and it drops back up. Now let me just demonstrate that the links are working as well before we go any further. If I click on my Some Product menu option, it takes me to the Some Product slide. Okay, so let's come out of this slideshow and let's look at adding the next animation effect to bring my drop down menu back up. Okay, so this is really going to be the same thing again. I'm going to click on my drop down menu, my grouped shape, go to the animations tab, and I'm going to click the add animation button further along that ribbon. So I want a second animation on that shape, and I'm going for a exit effect, and once again a fly out, as it will be called now. So when I choose it, you see the fly out by default thunders through the bottom of the slide. Now I want it to move up. So I'm going straight to effect options, changing it to the top as opposed to the bottom. And once again, setting the duration to 1 second. So it slows it down and it's consistent with the other drop down menu. And then I need to set that trigger. So let me click on trigger, on the click of, and I'll choose rectangle 11, which is the functions shape. And I can see it appear in my animation pane on the right. So I have the entrance effect first, and then I have that exit effect. Okay, let's test it out and make sure that part of it is working as we want it to. So slideshow tab, from current slide, let me click the functions menu and I'll get the drop down, and if I click the functions menu again, it now drops back up. That's fantastic. Now the last thing really for a drop down menu is that I noticed when I click on functions that it drops over the top of the menu, which is not realistic. So my next task is to sort that out. What I'm going to need to do is change the order of those shapes. If I click and drag my drop down menu up, you can see it appears over the top of the functions button, which is why the animation effect is making it come over the top. I want it to go behind, so I'm going to click on my format tab up above and use the send backward button, and every time I click it, it's going to go back a step. I could also use this drop down menu to say send it straight to the back, but I can see that my send backward clicking has now been sufficient, and it's now behind the functions button. So if I now just click and drag that back down into position again, but now I know that when we test it out, and I'll do that right now, slideshow from current slide, and click on my functions button, then it now appears behind the function shape, making it look like a real drop down menu. So as I say, you can create as many of these as you want, and you can link to what you want. And they really do create a very fancy, very impressive way of navigating slideshows. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please check out some of our other videos on our YouTube channel, and come check us out at Computergaga.com.